Be me. Greater than 21. Grew up in Oklahoma City. Dad gone early. Mom working 2 jobs. Sister raising herself. Always thought Sarah, 19, was careless, floating through life while I carried responsibility alone. I'd lecture her constantly, saying she wasn't serious, didn't care about anything important. Then one afternoon, I spotted an envelope half hidden on her desk with OSU payments written. Curious, I opened it, expecting junk mail, but inside were tuition receipts with my name. Paid in full. With her card. My chest froze, brain racing to explain what I was seeing. I dug deeper, found printouts of her Starbucks schedule, target shifts on Northwest Expressway listed. Late nights, double shifts, while I was out studying or sometimes complaining about sneakers. Reality slammed hard. She wasn't careless at all. She was killing herself quietly for me. I sat on her bed, envelope shaking in my hands, feeling like the worst brother alive. She sacrificed sleep, weekends, freedom, and I never saw it because I never looked. That night, I couldn't stop replaying every argument we'd had, every time I called her lazy. I remembered begging her for money for pizza, for new shoes, for gas, all of it. She always sighed, sometimes said no, sometimes yes, but I never asked why she seemed tired. Now I knew. She was stacking every dollar, building my future brick by brick. Anger at myself bubbled up. How blind could I have been all these years? I stared at the receipts until tears blurred them, choking on guilt I couldn't share. When she walked in later, uniform smelling like burnt coffee, I shoved the papers back fast. She just smiled faintly, thought I hadn't noticed, collapsed on her bed without a word. I wanted to blurt it out, hug her, say thank you, but fear stopped me cold. If she knew I found out, would it break the way she carried this? I sat there in the dark, hearing her breathing, wondering if silence was the kinder choice. And in that silence, I promised myself I'd find a way to give something back. The next evening, I tried something I'd never done, cooked dinner before she got home. Pasta boiling, cheap sauce warming, orange juice poured into glasses like it was wine. When Sarah walked in, still in her green Starbucks apron, she froze at the table. "What's this?" she asked, brows raised, eyes wide, tiredness still heavy on her face. "Just dinner," I said, shrugging, trying not to let my voice shake with guilt. She sat slowly, suspicious at first, then smiled small, like she wasn't used to this. I watched her eat, every bite quiet proof that I could give something back. That night was the first time in years we laughed without arguing about anything. Inside, though, my chest still burned with the secret. She didn't know I knew. I carried that weight, every thank you stuck in my throat, afraid to ruin her plan. So instead, I washed dishes, folded her uniform, tiny things to chip away at her load. It wasn't enough, but it felt like the first step toward being her brother again. Over the next week, I started waking up early, offering her rides to target shifts. At first, she waved me off, suspicious, asking if I wanted money or something. I just grinned, said no, and handed her coffee I made clumsily in Mom's old machine. Slowly, she let me in, letting me handle small errands she used to drag herself through. I picked up her car from the mechanic, carried groceries, kept the house cleaner before work. Each time she'd look at me sideways, tired eyes softening, like she was quietly grateful. But still, the envelopes haunted me, the proof of her sacrifices hidden upstairs in her room. I'd sit in class at OSU, notebook open, and think about her punching a clock. While professors talked theory, my sister was scanning items under fluorescent lights until midnight. It made every assignment feel heavier, every grade less like mine and more like hers. I didn't know if I should confess, admit I knew, or just keep showing up quietly. Either way, I wasn't letting her carry the whole weight by herself anymore. One Saturday, she came home exhausted, Target badge hanging crooked, eyes barely staying open. I grabbed her bag before it hit the floor, set it aside, and guided her chair. She laughed softly, half teasing. "What's gotten into you? You used to be the lazy one." I forced a grin, hiding the guilt twisting in my stomach like a knife. "Maybe I'm growing up," I said, but inside I wanted to blurt everything out. Instead, I poured her juice, put leftovers on the table, and watched her shoulders relax. Seeing her finally breathe for a moment made me realize how much I'd missed. All those years I'd painted her as selfish when she was the opposite all along. She carried me, and I was too blind to notice, too arrogant to appreciate it. The secret pressed heavier now, but so did the determination to change my part. I wasn't going to let her keep breaking herself down alone while I stayed clueless. Even if she never knew I'd found out, she was going to feel less alone. So I kept adjusting my routine, slipping into her world where she least expected it. I learned her schedule, figured out which nights she got home past midnight from Starbucks. Those nights I'd leave the porch light on, food waiting, so she didn't walk into silence. Sometimes she'd pause, eyes wet, but she never asked why. I think she didn't want to. Mom noticed too, saying little, just smiling when she saw me doing dishes or laundry. I think she knew exactly what had shifted but didn't want to break the spell. At school, friends asked me why I was skipping parties, acting older than 21 already. I never answered straight, just said I had stuff to take care of back home. How could I explain my sister was the reason I even sat in those classrooms? The guilt never left, but it fueled me, turned every assignment into a way to honor her. I owed her too much to waste any opportunity she had bled herself dry to give. And for once, I finally felt like I was starting to deserve her sacrifices. One night, I found her asleep on the couch, uniform still on, shoes half untied. I draped a blanket over her, careful not to wake her, but she stirred anyway. Through half-sleep she whispered, "As long as Alex never finds out, he'll think I'm sacrificing." Her voice cracked, soft, like a secret spilling she didn't mean for anyone to hear. "I just want him to have better than I ever will," she mumbled. My throat closed, standing there frozen, holding the edge of the blanket like it weighed tons. She didn't know I already knew, didn't realize I was carrying the secret too. I wanted to shake her awake, tell her I saw it, that I loved her. But I couldn't. The words jammed up, fear whispering it would only shame her. So I tucked her in gently, sat beside her, listening to the clock tick past midnight. The guilt pressed harder than ever, but so did the love that filled the room. And in that moment, I promised myself I'd never let her carry this alone again. The next morning I made breakfast, simple eggs and toast, acting like nothing had happened. She stumbled in, hair a mess, yawning, giving me a suspicious side eye at the table. "You're weird lately," she muttered, but she ate everything on the plate anyway. I just laughed it off, saying, "Maybe I finally learned how to be a brother." She snorted, rolling her eyes, but her smile lingered longer than she wanted me to see. Each small gesture felt like chipping away at the mountain she'd been climbing alone. I couldn't erase her late shifts or tuition bills, but I could ease her mornings. It wasn't much, but it mattered. I saw it in the way she softened. Even Mom started leaning on me more, quietly passing tasks she always handled before. Our house began to feel less heavy, more like family instead of a survival project. And though Sarah never spoke about it, I think she felt my quiet thank you. I wasn't confessing yet, but every action screamed louder than words ever could. Weeks went by, and helping her became routine. Rides to work, dinners ready, bills sorted neatly. She never asked why, just looked at me sometimes like she couldn't figure me out. At OSU I sat through lectures, professors droning, but my mind wandered back to her. While classmates planned road trips, Sarah was bagging groceries under fluorescent lights until midnight. I carried that contrast everywhere, the unfairness of it burning in my chest daily. It made every grade feel borrowed, every success stamped with her fingerprint hidden underneath. I started studying harder, not just for me, but because wasting her effort felt criminal. Each test passed was a silent thank you to her long nights on her feet. But no matter how much I did, it never felt like enough, not really. The envelopes upstairs haunted me, the proof of her sacrifices stacked like unspoken confessions. Every time I passed her door, I thought about returning them with a hug. But fear always won, leaving me silent, hoping my actions said what I couldn't. One Friday, she came home later than usual, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling from a long shift. I'd left pasta waiting again, sauce steaming, her favorite garlic bread on the side. She sat down heavily, whispering, "I don't deserve this," but she ate every bite. I wanted to shout, "You deserve more than this. You deserve the world," but held back. Instead, I cleared the table, let her collapse into bed, her shoes still on. I stood in the doorway, watching her breathe, guilt mixing with pride until I felt dizzy. Mom caught me staring once, her expression knowing, but she didn't say anything, just nodded slightly. It was like she understood the unspoken pact we were living inside, all three of us. Sometimes I imagine the day Sarah would know I discovered her secret months ago. Would she feel betrayed or relieved that she wasn't fooling me anymore? I couldn't answer, so I stuck to my routine, showing up, keeping the weight balanced. And deep down I prayed she could feel the love behind every small thing I did. Spring semester hit harder than I expected, projects stacking up while Sarah kept grinding double shifts. I'd stay up late studying, thinking about her scanning items at Target until her eyes burned. Every page I highlighted felt tied to the hours she lost behind a register. Sometimes I'd text her stupid memes, just to remind her she wasn't invisible in my world. She rarely answered fast, but when she did, there was always a small smile attached. It killed me knowing she thought she had to hide the truth of what she did. Meanwhile, I was holding the evidence upstairs like a thief sitting on stolen gold. I wondered if keeping her secret was selfish, protecting her pride, but choking on my guilt. Every morning, I made her coffee. Every night, I made sure dinner was ready. Those little rituals became my language, my unspoken way of saying thank you. Still, I caught myself rehearsing the words, "I know," in the mirror sometimes. But every time she walked in, the courage vanished, replaced by silence and a forced grin. One night, she surprised me by dropping on the couch with 2 Sonic milkshakes. "Figured you needed sugar more than me," she joked, handing me the one with Oreos. I blinked, guilt rushing, because I knew she'd just spent her last tip money on it. We sat there sipping quietly, the TV flickering, her head leaning heavier on the cushion. I wanted to tell her right then, spill everything, let her know I saw her. Instead, I asked about work, listened as she laughed off exhaustion like it was normal. Her laugh cracked halfway through, and for a second, she looked older than 19. I hated that weight on her shoulders, hated myself for letting it stay invisible so long. But she looked at me and said, "Thanks for being less of a jerk lately." I laughed, hiding the lump in my throat, nodding like it was nothing. Inside, though, it meant everything. That she noticed, that she felt even a sliver of relief. And I swore silently to keep earning that smile, one small act at a time. One evening she came home, so drained she barely made it to the couch before crashing. I set her bag down, draped a blanket, and sat nearby just listening to her breathe. Through half-sleep she mumbled, "As long as Alex never finds out, he'll think I'm sacrificing." Her words stabbed deep, because I already knew, and she thought I was still clueless. "I just want him to have better," she whispered, fading back into heavy sleep. I sat frozen, throat locked, torn between waking her or letting her keep the illusion. The room felt smaller, quieter, as if her secret now lived between both of us. I wanted to say thank you, to cry, to tell her she saved me every day. But I stayed silent, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly in the dim light. For the first time I realized this wasn't just guilt, it was pride wrapped in love. I wasn't ashamed of her sacrifices anymore. I was terrified she'd never know I saw them. So I promised myself again, if I couldn't speak, I'd show her through everything else. After that night my actions doubled. I cooked more, cleaned more, made sure her world felt lighter. She noticed. I could see it in her tired eyes softening whenever she came home. She didn't question it, maybe afraid of the answer, maybe just grateful not to carry alone. At OSU, I pushed harder than ever, studying like her paycheck depended on my grades. Because in a way, it did. Every paper turned in was her sacrifice paying off. My friends started calling me boring, too serious, but they didn't know the half of it. I skipped every party, every trip, because how could I celebrate when she was grinding? Still, I laughed with her when she teased me, let her think I was just changing. Mom sometimes gave me this look, like she knew I'd figured out more than I admitted. She never asked, though, maybe trusting I'd handle it the right way when I was ready. Meanwhile, Sarah just kept working, kept giving, unaware that I was quietly giving back too. And in those quiet exchanges, I felt more like her brother than I ever had before. Weeks later, our rhythm felt different, like we'd silently agreed to share the weight. I still hid the envelopes upstairs, but the guilt didn't crush me quite as hard. Instead, I used it as fuel, cooking dinner, cleaning, making sure she rested sometimes. Sarah would roll her eyes, muttering, "You're weird," but her smile always gave her away. I caught myself wondering what would happen if I confessed, if I told her everything. Would she feel proud I noticed, or ashamed that I'd seen behind her secret? I couldn't risk it yet, so I kept quiet, letting my actions speak louder. Mom watched from the sidelines, smiling like she already knew, never asking a single question. And in that silence, our little family started to feel less like survival and more like home. I still thought about that night on the couch, her words echoing in my chest. She wanted better for me, but what she didn't know was she already gave me everything. And maybe someday I'll be brave enough to finally tell her I know. Now every morning starts with something small: coffee poured, a ride offered, laughter in the kitchen. I lace up for class knowing every step is built on her late-night shifts. She still believes her secret is safe, and maybe that's okay for now. I leave the receipts where I found them, a reminder of the love she hides. Maybe one day she'll discover I've known all along, and we'll finally talk it through. Until then, I'll keep proving I see her by showing up, not just saying it. Because love isn't always loud. It's in dishes washed, rides given, bills quietly handled. It's in the spaces where we don't speak, but both feel the weight shared. Sarah doesn't need me to call her a hero. She needs me to stand beside her. And I will, for as long as it takes, no matter how heavy it feels. If you've ever carried family secrets like this, would you confess or keep them hidden? Tell me, would you break the silence or let your actions do the talking forever?